Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back to Mind Your Mental. Welcome to the brand new season of the podcast. It has been a long time. It's been a while. It's been like, I would say 2 years maybe. So if you are new to the podcast, welcome. And if you have listened to my previous seasons, welcome back. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Raquel Martin. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I am a professor. I am a scientist in my career aspects. I teach at HBCU, focusing on Black mental health and liberation psych and all that fun stuff. And then personally, I am married. I've been with my husband for it's been a minute. I mean, we've been together since 2010. We didn't get married till 2017 though. Notice the gap in that. And then I also have 2 toddlers, 2 toddler boys. That's like my personal stuff. I'm from Philly. I live in Nashville. I miss Philly every single day. I miss being on the East Coast every single day. My God, it's there's nothing like it. We may think about moving to the DMV area. My husband said it's going to be a firm no moving to Philly. Too much crime. And I always say that builds character, you know? It just, I mean, I'm sure, yeah, it just builds character. He doesn't see it that way. He's actually from Nashville. So that's all that stuff. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring back the podcast is kind of linked with why I do this work in the first place. I genuinely think that working with Black mental health and providing care to the Black community and individuals of African descent when it comes to mental well-being overall, not even just mental well-being overall, when it comes to physical, emotional, spiritual health, I genuinely feel like that's what I've been put on this earth to do. And I'm totally aware of the fact that there's so much stuff that's just not accessible anymore. Like, it's so hard to get access to things. So I post a wealth of information on my social media, Raquel Martin PhD, posting a great amount of stuff in my social community. And I just thought that the podcast had to come back to be able to provide these kind of bite-sized snippets as well when it comes to information. Hey everyone, just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast. It is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, which why aren't you there? Go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. I wanted this first episode to be about goals and personal development because it is January. I know everybody has set those resolutions. Side note, I actually am not a big fan of starting resolutions in January. Now, if you have the wherewithal to be like, I can set my resolution in January or February or March or April or whatever, that's what's up. But I find that some people feel very limited to set it in January. And then if they haven't set it like January 1st or December 30th, because this year I feel like everybody was talking about resolutions all the way in December, then they feel like they're behind. So it's not even just the aspect of I don't like resolutions. I don't like the way that we have made the thought process of resolution so stringent that you automatically feel like you're behind and then you end up beating yourself up about stuff. And I just cannot stand people beating themselves up. So I don't like that aspect of it. So when we're talking about goals and resolutions and things like that, I typically go along the lines of you can start a goal or something new on January 1st. You can start it on a Monday. You can start it on a Sunday. You can start it on a Thursday. You can start it as soon as you wake up Monday morning. You can start it at noon on Thursday afternoon, right? Because the thing that really gets in the way, I find, of most people meeting their goals is the fact that they're just being too stringent. Now, I'm also going to cover, there's a difference between providing yourself with grace and making excuses. I totally get that. But what I do find is that most people are not doing that. I do not find many people making excuses for themselves. I find most of the time people are beating themselves up and then wondering why they're not meeting these goals. And it's because you're being jerks to yourself. So I always start off with that. Set the goals whenever you want. Tips I always state when it comes to identifying goals is figuring out the underlying reason for the goal. So here's the thing. One of the biggest goals I always hear my patients talking about, or even my students in school, because I'm a professor too, is like wanting to lose weight. And notice I didn't say, oh, I want to be healthier. No, the goal is typically like, oh, I want to lose weight. Some of my students, the goal is to gain weight, but some of my students, the goal is to lose weight. And I'm like, okay, so that's a good starting point. Identifying, you know where to start. But then I want you to expand upon the reasoning of why this is your goal. So say the goal is for you to lose weight. Why? What does losing weight actually have to do? How does it align with like your values in the first place so that we can make sure it's more sustainable? So if you want to lose weight, okay, that's what's up. What's the purpose? Is it because you want to fit a certain outfit? Because at the end of the day, sizes go up in the first place. The clothes are meant to fit you. You're not meant to fit the clothes. Is it because you want to be healthier? That's what's up too. Because first of all, being healthy and hitting a certain weight goal is not the same thing. Is it because you feel as though you are going to be significantly more attractive and then people will like you better and then you'll be able to meet new people and have a new life because of losing weight? That's a different thing. And this is where I always state that like values come into place. I very much go according to like living a value-based life, identifying what my values are, what drives me to do every single thing in my life. It honestly makes decision-making a lot easier because if it aligns with my values and it's not incredibly inconvenient, I'm probably going to do it. A lot of times we're talking about like decisions are so difficult to make, and I think that's because we're not grounded in our values. If something goes against my value, it's probably going to be a firm no. Right? But if it goes with my value and it's not ridiculously inconvenient, it's easier for me to make that decision. If the goal is to lose weight because you think it's going to have this huge, significant change in your life and who you are, you're going to have so many different relationships. I would also state that if you are not kind to yourself, if you are not kind to others, if you have a pretty crappy relationship with yourself and with other people, if you're unkind, if you're a bit of a butthead, that's going to be the same whether you're a size 6 or a size 26. So even the thought process that, oh, I lose this weight and my whole life is going to change. Oh, I lost all this weight and there's still nobody around me. Yeah, you might still be a butthead. You might. Maybe instead of losing weight, we should have thought about losing, that terrible aspect of your personality. Just put it out there, right? So I always state that one of the biggest things you have to do when it comes to identifying your goals is figure out the why of the goals so that you could be more consistent. And specifically when it comes to food, I will always state as someone who has worked with many patients on their journey of trying to lose weight and then trying to identify the underlying reasons why it's tough for them to lose weight or they feel the need to lose weight. You really need to think about, with this specific goal, what your relationship with food is, because as someone who, when I gained a ridiculous amount of weight, it was because I was treating myself with food like I was using food as medicine. And a lot of people use food as medicine. When you're removing something, and I don't want to say that food is an addiction. For some people, it can be. When you're removing something, you have to replace it with something else. If food is typically your way of having stress reduction, or it's your top coping skill to make you feel better about yourself, and it stops making you feel like crap, and then you remove that, and you don't replace it with coping skills or self-care strategies or therapy, it's never going to be sustainable because it's something that you've used to survive. I don't believe in like dysfunctional behaviors. Every single behavior has a function. But when we are thinking about the way that we're coming up with goals and you're trying to remove something from your life or significantly decrease something from your life and you're not replacing it with something comparable or something that provides you with a comparable feeling, it's never going to stick. I get stressed out and I automatically go get a cookie. I get stressed out and I can't grab that cookie because I'm trying to work on that. What do I replace it with? Have I provided some education to myself about coping skills? Do I have any grounding exercises? Am I going to be able to have a session with a therapist? Am I going to be able to take a minute and a breather? If that's not the case, then you're going to get the cookie. And why wouldn't you? And it's not even a thought process of, oh, I failed because I just wasn't strong enough. It's not even being strong enough. It's like, well, we need some better planning in this scenario. Like you'll take stuff away and then not replace it with anything and then wonder why it didn't stick. And it doesn't always have to be a physical thing that's like a one-to-one relationship. It also could be something that replaces that feeling that you get from using that item, right? Like say it's the cookie, and the cookie isn't only about the cookie, but it's like the taste of the cookie and it's the joy of it. And it's the having, maybe you have a routine where you prep and you get your coffee right before you have your cookie, and you have this moment of peace where you get 15 minutes of silence with the cookie and you get to focus on that into routine, because a lot of us are also very much linked to our routines. What are you replacing it with? Like, all right, I'm not going to do that whole routine with the cookie and it's the only time I have my hot coffee during the day or something like that. But what I'm really craving in this aspect is a moment of peace, which I get when I finally get to eat my cookie. The taste of it, how I feel once I have that, which means, maybe get a smaller cookie or have a piece of dark chocolate or something. Don't go crazy. But also the joy that I get from having this moment. If food is the only time when you are having joy, we got to change something in your life. Food is listen, I am very much about like, I am going to enjoy my meal. There is no reason why you're not about to make me be out here and not looking forward to like enjoying something that is delicious. I don't think everything has to be steeped in fat to be delicious. It does make it more delicious though. And that's just facts. That's just science. That's not on me. Some stuff is just so seasoned, like impeccable. How do you expect me to turn this down? I digress. Anyway, but I will also state the fact that it's also the thought process of, food shouldn't be my only joy. Your joy shouldn't be in one specific thing in the first place. Like you can never be fulfilled from one item. For example, there was a time when I gained a wealth of weight, and it was in no way tied to having children, which, let me say something. Okay. And that's all I'm gonna say about gaining weight with children. Okay, you know what I'm saying. But anyway, I had gained a ridiculous amount of weight, and it was because I was using food as medicine, because food is delicious. The food I used to get, because one, I can also cook, so it's also like, we can make this at home, or we could just spend a bunch of money to get it. But I was using food as medicine because I was I was just feeling very crappy about a lot of scenarios. And at the end of the day, maintaining your mental well-being, taking the time to think about what's going on with your life, taking the time to work on that's not sexy and it's not fun. And half the time I do not enjoy it, but I always enjoy that freaking cookie. So I didn't want to take the time to invest into be like, why am I feeling this way? Have you noticed a theme with every single time you see that person, you got to go get a slice of pizza? Yes, I noticed the theme and I'm still going to eat that young pizza. It's not always fun. So I was using that scenario. Like I was very much in a cycle of when I was around certain people, when I was having thoughts about certain scenarios, I would typically grab some kind of like high fat, rich kind of food. When it comes to like favorite foods, it's not even like people are like, what are your favorite food? I don't really have a favorite food. I have a favorite line on the food pyramid, like, so let's just say grains. Let's just say grains, okay? I ain't got no type, okay? So let's just say olive grains, and that includes pizza, that includes cake, that includes, if you got any aspect of flour in it, I like it, okay? And I was getting it, okay? We got to the point where I basically, I tried to convince one of my best friends. She's a nurse practitioner. I was like, do you ever come into contact when people have to take that medicine to have a colonoscopy? This is back in the day, because now they just tell you to take their own medicine. But like when they give you that medicine and she says, yeah. And I was like, can you steal that medicine from me? Because I'm not going to stop eating. I just don't want it to stay in me. It was that bad, y'all. It sounds insane, but I was genuinely like, listen. Yo, just steal the medicine for me, yo. Like, what's the big deal? No one's gonna catch you. It's basically a laxative, but in identifying that like it had gone past where it needed to go. Just being honest about the fact that that it happens, right? Many people use food as medicine. That's their relationship with food. In order for me to actually lose weight, I had to address the fact that I was unhappy with a lot of things. I had to address that this scenario didn't go the way I wanted to. I had to grieve the way that scenario went. I had to ask myself what the next steps were and all of that. My mom, for example, when she started losing weight and she had to identify her relationship with food, when she was coming up, we from Philly, we from North Philly. So like, Me just being here goes against every statistic there is because I am genuinely not supposed to be here. But it was also the fact that she was always raised to clean her plate. It was like a whole thing. Like, you always clean your plate. You don't waste food. There's only so much food we have. And one of the things that contributed to her losing a significant amount of weight was the fact that she just started putting less food on her plate. Like, just knowing her routine, right? And the same way I mentioned earlier about people have routines and you're making goals and you're taking things away from that goal. Like, if your routine is having that coffee and that cookie and you like you get energy 10 minutes before oh, it's almost 3 o'clock. That means I get coffee and a cookie, and oh, I get to prep my coffee in a special machine, and oh, I get to sit in my favorite chair and I eat my cookie and I listen to these certain songs or something. Part of it is also the routine. So with me, it was losing weight. That was my goal, having to acknowledge my relationship with food, looking into mental health help, stop, being in scenarios where I knew I was going to see that mofo that was pissing me off. Just putting that out there. Just be real. I'm going to be real with you. Like, my God. For my mom, it really was more so altering her routine, knowing that, like, if I need more food, I will get more food. And also knowing that, like, you don't have to eat until you're full. You eat until you can stop eating when you're not hungry anymore. So I say all that to say, when you're identifying your goals and your resolutions and you're trying to figure out what's going on, also figure out what you're going to replace it with and do a real analysis of what's going to contribute to the sustainable goals. Because that needs to be the, like, new year, what is it? New year, new me, new year, same me. My whole thing is identifying what happens to help you have sustainable goals, because some of the times we're setting these goals in a superficial manner. And I don't mean a superficial manner meaning, oh, I just want to look good. And first of all, ain't nothing wrong with looking good. Okay. I will say that some people I've worked with them get to certain sizes and they thought they were going to feel significantly different when they look different. And the problem was internal. So it really is feel good, people say look good, feel good. It honestly should be feel good, look good, because you could be a size 6 that you wanted to be and you look amazing, and then you still go home and cry every single night. And instead of crying into cheesecake, you crying into your freaking salad, but you still feel like crap because you didn't figure out what was going on internally. Just saying. Because, like, so many people's goals have to do with their bodies. When I say you're coming up with superficial goals, you're not really setting yourself up with success. I always feel like ultimately my goal in anything I do, when it comes to being a professor, when it comes to being a scientist, when it comes to doing social media, doing speaking engagements, I genuinely want to help y'all set yourself up for success. Because as a psychologist, I always say my job is to not have a job. I hope to talk myself out of a job every single session to help you do what you need to do. Because in therapy, a lot of times when my patients graduate, because you can graduate from therapy, y'all. When my patients graduate, they'll always say the same thing. Thank you so much. You helped me so much. I don't know what I would do without you. And I always say, you did the work. You did the work. Because if you only benefited from therapy, like if you only worked on changing and evolving your mental well-being, if you only did it during your sessions, and that's if you have weekly sessions, and that's 1 hour a week, that's less than 1% of your week dedicated to you and improving. The reason why you made change, the reason why you were able to graduate from therapy session is because you were doing the work outside of session. Right? So when setting yourself up for success, when you're thinking about this with your goals, you also need to be more specific when it comes to, don't just think about the superficial aspect of the goal. My goal is to lose weight. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and that's going to be it. And I don't have to change my food or my relationship with food, or even have to process how I got to this weight gain in the first place. Because then you're just going to go right back there. And you don't even have to use weight loss as a goal. So many times, one of the goals I hear a lot of people setting are, I want to be better with my boundaries. I want to be better with my boundaries. More power to you. Be better with those boundaries. Put them up. But a lot of people are doing that and they don't even know what boundaries are. Do you genuinely know what boundaries are? Because a lot of people are saying they want to have better boundaries, and what they really want are better rules, and they want better ways to enforce their rules, and they want people to follow the script that they made for them in their head, and they want people to just do what they want them to do. Because a boundary guides your behavior. Because all you can control is your behavior. A rule attempts, and half the time it's not successful. A rule attempts to guide someone else's behavior. And it's important to know the difference, because someone can violate a rule and your boundary can still hold firm, right? My boundary is I don't stay places where I'm uncomfortable. The rule in the room is like, don't scream. Somebody starts screaming, They violated that rule. But your boundary is you don't stay places where you're uncomfortable and you leave. They violated that rule, but you stuck with your boundary. I'm not about to stay up in here and have you screaming in my face like you lost your mind. I ain't the 1, 2, or 4. So I'm a dip, right? If you're identifying goals when it comes to boundaries, also look at different aspects of boundaries. Think about what category you're thinking about. Are you thinking about personal boundaries, physical boundaries, emotional boundaries? Ask yourself what realm of your life you're trying to improve with this goal, if the goal is a boundary. Know the difference. And then if you get into scenarios where your boundary is violated, I see all these articles about what do you do when someone violates your boundaries? And I always say, one, terrible article, terrible heading. That's not the way that works. Because it's always saying, what do you do when someone else violates your boundaries? We're already starting off wrong. Because once again, a boundary guides your behavior. When your boundaries are violated, the first thing you do is you have to start asking yourself questions, because the only person who can violate your boundaries is you. Because that's the only person who can set them. And that's the only person who can sever them. The only person who can set your boundaries and violate your boundaries, set and sever. I like that better because of the alliteration. The only person who can set and sever your boundaries is you. You have to ask yourself questions. If you really want to, and honestly, this could be tip number 3 when it comes to your goals and things like that, is also be prepared to put some boundaries in there to ask yourself questions, because you cannot reach goals without identifying what your boundaries are, because someone or something, whether that's you, whether that's a friend, a family member, or an environment or something, is likely going to get to the point where they might knock you off your what is it called? Kilter? Knock you off your game or something when it comes to your goal. It always happens. And to do that, you're going to have to establish what your boundary is. So, tip number 3, final tip when it comes to doing what you want to do with your goals and establishing the boundary piece. If you violate your boundary, you have to ask yourself questions so that you can fix it in the first place. And this is why it's really important to understand the difference between boundaries and rules, because when a boundary is violated, when you have violated your boundary, that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. That means you need to be the Inspector Gadget of you. Inspector Gadget. Who knows generationally who will actually get that reference, but you have to be the investigator. You have to be you got to be like dun dun. You got to be the Law and Order person of you. Why am I not? You got to be the Olivia Benson. You got to be the Olivia Benson of you, right? So you violated a boundary. Let's give an example. What's a boundary I violate for myself all the time? I'm working on it, y'all. Dr. Martin's in therapy too. Oh, bedtime. My boundary when it came to trying to maintain my physical boundaries, my self-care in the physical realm, was that I had to go to bed by 10. And I didn't. So the next day when I feel like trash, which I do because I need to go to bed at 10 because I get up at 6 on a good day. The boys, they sleep however they want to sleep. On a good day, I had to wake up at 6. So the next day when I feel like trash, and as a result, I am cranky and things aren't getting done the way they should, and my executive functioning is all the way off. We're actually going to do an episode on executive functioning because a lot of y'all automatically assume you have ADHD and really you just need to go to sleep. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have ADHD, but I'm not going to say you do. You could also just, go to sleep, stop scrolling past midnight. But anyway, I digress. I was up the next day feeling cranky, and the first thing I did after getting some tea and, I don't know, I probably stubbed my toe and flipped the table, having to process all right, what got in the way of me sticking to the goal, because the ultimate goal is to go to sleep at 10, so I'm in a better space to be a better human being. What got in the way? With me, it's one or two things. No, actually, it could be a couple of things. One, I'm reading a book that I need to put down. I'm scrolling randomly, looking at research articles. Oh my God, I'm such a nerd, y'all. Such a nerd. It could be watching TV or it could be reading a JAMA article. Either way, I'm just oh my God, I'm so excited to do this. Such a nerd, y'all. Gotta, this is who I am. Or doing tasks at the end of the day. So, and trying to identify what got in the way of me violating my boundary, I had to do a bit of a restructuring to see how this keeps happening. Now, for this night, let's say if it was just me watching TV, I tend to have a habit of, I dedicate so much of my life to everyone else during the day, as a professor, as a mother, as a wife, as a scientist, shoot, as a content creator. Like, a lot of my time is dedicated to providing services to others, whether it's teaching my students or answering their questions or giving them office hours, whether it is hanging out with my boys and giving them what they need when it comes to attention, whether it is checking in with my husband and making sure that he's good. All of that. So sometimes by the end of the day, when it's the first time of the day where I've actually had to dedicate to myself, I kind of feel the need to like get that time back. Like, I'm going to dedicate this time to myself. And even though I know I feel like crap, and even though I know that I'm tired and I'm dazing and I'm like dozing off, I still will just shake it off and keep scrolling, because it's like I deserve to have time to myself too. So one of the issues is I need to create some lines when it comes to how much time I dedicate to others. Another issue would say I stayed up late doing a task during the day. Sometimes you need to identify whether this task can be completed the next day, or if the task is even necessary. Like, some stuff is just unnecessary. Do I need to spend an extra hour chopping my children's sandwiches into dinosaurs? No. Chuck the sandwich at their head and have them eat it. Catch. We're gonna play a game, y'all. Like, everything's a game anyway. No. But like, do I need to do that? So part of it is also me having realistic expectations about what is necessary and what is not necessary. But another thing could just be I need to find more time in the day where I have joy and time dedicated to myself, so I don't feel the need to pour it all in at the end of the day. But in doing this, the whole entire conversation is a conversation I have with myself. Eventually, it might have my husband come into play and being like, hey, I didn't get to sleep early last night. Part of the issue, I forgot to ask you to take the boys to do bath time, so I didn't express the fact that you need to do bath time, and I took it on, so I had less time for myself. So in helping with that boundary, I talk to my husband and communicate. Another one could be as simple as, and this is a habit I do all the time that helps me, unplug my phone in either downstairs or across the room. Because if it's one thing I am not going to do is get out of bed to scroll. So it can be a conversation, but it could also be, sometimes you just got to trick yourself and know yourself, right? If one of my things was I used to snack all the time, but it used to be on trash, delicious trash. Like, oh my God, basura, but like amazing. I mean, I'm actually a lot better with it now. One of the things that I also feel as though gets in the way of goals is like we restrict stuff so much that we feel like we can never have it, and we go honey baked, like ham on it. So say my thing was chocolate, got rid of all the chocolate in the house. Certain items I do have to get rid of. Like, I can eat a bag of honey barbecue chips in a sitting. No lie. Like, there's no way it's not gonna happen. So that's the thing I can't purchase. It's like, nah, we ain't doing this. But certain things I can keep in the house and just know that if I want it, I'll have a snack and then I'll eat it. And then knowing that I can have it at any time and not putting such a stringent restriction on it actually is healthier. And it also contributes to me not overeating, Part of this can be changing your guidelines or changing what's in your house. Part of it can be having conversations with others, but it's always going to start with having a conversation with yourself. Okay, y'all. So I've shared 3 amazing tips when it comes to keeping your goals, sustaining them, and also just making sure that you don't beat yourself up if you have a bit of a lapse when it comes to your goals. Lapses and relapses are the aspect of, they're integral when it comes to setting and maintaining goals. A lot of times we have this thought process that we are going to, and part of this is because of media, y'all, but a lot of times we have this thought process that we are going to set this goal on Monday, January 1st. We're going to wake up and we're going to hear that inspirational music, and then the inspirational music is never going to stop. And that's not the case. What I do with my patients, if I'm setting them up for success, we also going to talk about the time where you trip and fall, because then you're prepared on how to deal with it. We'll always remember, y'all, 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward, y'all. That's just math. And I feel like we have lost our way with that. Like, oh, I got to make 20 steps forward and then no steps back in order to be a success. That's absurd. And that's not the way it works. That's not even, we're in the social media age and it's a snapshot of reality. But if y'all go to my social media, y'all know I talk about the peaks of my journey, and I also talk about the pits when I am on the ground, crawling for dear life. Like, somebody please save me, Lord Jesus, be a fence, a fence to keep these kids away from me, my loving, amazing kids. So, all right, y'all, thanks for tuning into the episode. And remember, 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That's just math, y'all. And also, don't forget to mind your mental. And don't worry about minding anyone else's. You got enough to manage minding your own, okay? Mind your own mental.